To some, the moon is like a forgotten glow of a candle stuffed in the back of a drawer, lost in the chaos of everyday life. What use is it? What meaning could it have in a world so full of noise? To others, it's a key, unlocking the truth of ancient rituals, illuminating darkened paths, and unleashing unearthly howls of wolves beneath its light. Yet the common man remains jaded, forgetting that the moon is the reason for the changing tides. He likely never knew that Aristotle believed the forces of the moon similarly changed our mental states, or that the full moon has been thought to increase crime rates and hospitalizations. Indigenous cultures dating back to the ancient Egyptians believed the full moon assisted in childbirth and led to bountiful harvests. Egyptians performed rituals under the full moon, a time for heightened spiritual activity, as the moon's light was seen as a pathway to divine insight. In Wicca and other modern pagan traditions, the moon is represented as the triple goddess with the three phases: maiden for the waxing moon, mother for the full moon, and crone for the waning moon, each phase representing different life stages and energies. The moon was worshipped in ancient Egypt, and because this is where the financial system is rooted, it's worth taking note of the connection. The Egyptian god, Thoth, was believed to control the cycles of the moon, using its phases to mark time and maintain cosmic balance. He was connected to wisdom, magic, and writing, and believed to have invented hieroglyphs. Egyptians believed that the moon's cycles were a cosmic rhythm that kept creation in order, overseen by Thoth, so it's interesting how his name is so similar to Thoth. The deity that is thought to control the cycles of the moon also is connected to wisdom. The moon's power extends beyond myth and rituals, as its influence can also be seen in the natural world. Predatory animals like sharks and wolves are usually more active during a full moon, whereas prey will hide and stay safe. The Moon Tarot card represents the depths of the psyche and the pull of hidden forces on living things. The Romans believed the moon could drive one to madness, and in several languages, including Latin, Luna refers to the moon. The word lunatic is derived from Luna, and similarly tied to the belief that the moon can influence the mind and lead to irrational behavior. The prominence of Luna to describe the moon, and the fact the dollar draws your attention to the Egyptians who worship the moon, should make you reconsider the world you live in. To me, it's clear the moon sways our minds like the tides, and that's why we see fluctuations in the market as we do. And while we are apex predators, instinctually we are all a little more of a combination of predator and prey. So knowing about the phases of the moon would seem essential to the elites for fabricating events at specific times in order to manipulate mankind into making the wrong decisions. Traders and investors both know that good news arrives at tops and bad news arrives at bottoms, so perhaps you can see now how the market maker works. Now, to further reveal this truth, let's take a look at Bitcoin in relation to the moon's cycles. Each of the blue circles are new moons, and each of the white circles are full moons. You can clearly see that all of the lows are corresponding with the full moons, the time of predation and fear, while all of the highs are happening in new moons, which are ends to some and new beginnings to others. We can see this pattern has been in play for all of Bitcoin's history, and it typically trades perfectly in sync with it. There are times where lows or highs may come in during the quarter moons before the extremes are met, so a combination with more traditional TA can be useful to show you when the market has pivoted. One tricky moon to navigate is usually the August new moon, which is often accompanied with the price dump. This is it in 2024. This is the August new moon of 2023 and 2022. All price movements going to the downside when typically they're going up. So while some of this is probably simple and intuitive, it can be confusing too. You likely can notice that both tops and bottoms each will have moon phases, so how might we navigate this from a macro point of view? Obviously, if you would have bought on a full moon at the top of the market, you would still have lost a lot of money. This is where eclipses come in. These events are either when the moon blocks the light from the sun or when the earth blocks the light from reaching the moon. In ancient Egypt, Horus, god of the sky, lost his left eye in battle with Set, god of chaos. Thoth restored his eye, which symbolizes the cyclical loss and renewal of the lunar phases, so the eye of Horus represents the solar eclipse. Indeed, the eclipses are usually times of chaos, which is why they are perfect rituals to represent the battle between Set and Horus. I've personally witnessed a total eclipse, and in the middle of the day, birds stopped chirping, bees began resting, and ducks sought safety from the darkness, just as each would at night. So imagine how confusing that must have been to be tricked by nature itself. All natural rhythms thrown off for just a moment, then a return to normal. Kind of like a reset. And in an esoteric sense, reset energy is what eclipses are meant to do, as they usher in a new cycle of opportunities that allow for transformation. That doesn't always mean it's peaceful. Remember, Set was god of chaos. On this chart, the eclipse seasons are marked by vertical bars, and as you can see, the eclipses always bring volatility to the markets. This cycle, they have been acting like pivot points as accurately as clockwork, although this can be seen in previous cycles as well. Now, especially in recent years, the chaos that has accompanied these eclipses is probably memorable by everyone. The FTX collapse happened precisely in eclipse season, as did the Terra Luna collapse. Think about how ritualized this is for a second. Terra means earth and Luna means moon. The moon blocks the sun to create an eclipse, and an eclipse brings chaos. Another example is how both recession fears and war escalations hit during the eclipse seasons of this October 2024 and October of 2023, right before the market took off. Other chaos around the March 2023 eclipse season were the bank failures, USDC depeg, and increased regulatory actions by Gary Gensler at the start of May. March 2024 led to meme coin mania and new celebrity tokens like Jenner. When we look at XRP, we can see this happening too. The lawsuit against Ripple was filed exactly during an eclipse season, as well as a very rare planetary alignment with Jupiter and Saturn. It also reacts to eclipse midpoints, for which the lawsuit was also in the midpoint between a series of great American eclipses, and XRP was deemed not a security precisely between eclipse midpoints in 2023, and its recent sell-off into the 30s happened precisely at a midpoint. So we all should be able to see that there is a noticeable energy happening around the eclipses, and it should appear especially obvious that this cycle they are marking pivot points like clockwork, but obviously the market must correct at some point. So again, how can we navigate this on the macro? Aside from following the 11-year solar cycles in relation to the Dow Jones, which I've covered in another video, we can also look at which type of eclipse that is leading the eclipse season to more accurately determine where a market top and bottom are occurring. Now looking closer at each of the eclipse seasons, I have the solar eclipses labeled in orange and the lunar eclipses labeled in white so that we can easily reference which one is happening first. I will refer to these as the leading eclipses, so pay attention to which color line is leading the eclipse season. What you can notice is that the leading eclipse comes in waves of 4, occasionally with an eclipse season that has 3 total eclipses, but we can still determine the pattern by counting to 4. The data is incomplete because Bitcoin doesn't begin trading perfectly at the start of an eclipse cycle, but after Bitcoin starts trading, we see these first 3 solar eclipses leading each eclipse season as the market moves through its bottom. Now watch closely from this point. This triple eclipse counts as a lunar leading eclipse, which gives us 1, 2, 3, 4 lunar eclipses indicated by the white, leading each eclipse season as the market makes its top in 2013. As the market bottoms, again, we see 1, 2, 3, 4 solar eclipses indicated by the orange as it takes off in 2015 to 2016. So I think you're probably starting to see the pattern here. Then after the market makes its way up, we see 1, 2, 3, 4 lunar eclipses as it rounds the top in 2017. This one's a little more confusing because I think there's a few ways to count it, so I started counting the solar eclipses earlier because this eclipse season has 2 solar eclipses, and I think that is more powerful than the 2 lunar eclipses after it ends. So again, it bottoms and consolidates through 2020. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then again, 4 lunar eclipses as it makes its top in 2021. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we enter the bear market, and again there is 1, 2, 3, 4 solar eclipses as the market bottoms and begins to pivot up. And this of course leads us to right now, where the market has switched into lunar eclipses leading the show. We're 2 down, 1, 2, and 2 to go, 1, 2, which means we're nearing the top. To recap, the 2013 bull market ended with 2 lunar cycles remaining. The 2017 bull market ends with 2 lunar cycles remaining. The 2021 bull market ends with 2 lunar cycles remaining. Now 2021 might look a little confusing, but on-chain data and overall market hype ended on the first peak rather than the second. There were tumbleweeds being kicked around by a few degens on that second top, so I view it more like a retrace. So that leads us back to right now, and if history is to repeat, we will be seeing the top for Bitcoin ending with 2 lunar cycles remaining, which suggests it must happen before March of 2025. I could imagine a slight retrace going into the February 2026 eclipse season, but bear in mind this is a solar eclipse and the market will be weak and likely experiencing another major capitulation around that time. So this is a little cluttered, but here's the big picture, completely zoomed out so you can see it all at once for just a second. Take a moment and realize how mirrored the Bitcoin cycles are with the eclipse cycles. And with this knowledge, you now have the power to navigate the market. I believe over time Bitcoin may respond differently, so we must do our best to recognize what's going on in the present to identify the trend while being prepared for change. The cosmos is massive, and there are more things happening in a given moment than anyone can keep track of. For example, the position of eclipses in the sky will change over time through 18-year Saros cycles. This is where eclipses will move away from and back to their original points in the sky. As you can see, this larger 18-year cycle has a pattern of its own. This is probably less important in the grand scheme of things, but a reminder of why we must always pay attention. So if all you can take away from this video is what we've covered so far, that's okay. But I want to dive into some of the rarer moon events and finish off with a prediction for 2037. With every year, we have micromoons and supermoons. They're common, but can give us further market insights. These can accompany eclipses, but don't need to. A supermoon is when the moon is in perigee, that is very close to the Earth, and a micromoon is when the moon is in apogee, or very far away from the Earth. A new moon is always dark, and if it's further from the Earth, it can lower the tides more than usual. So I think of micro new moons as one end of the spectrum. On the other end, super full moons are bright nearer the Earth, which would raise tides and illuminate the night more than usual. In terms of charting, I think the micro new moons and super full moons are the most important to pay attention to, because the energies are more polarized than micro full moons or super new moons. But to be clear, these are more of a granular detail than anything in the first half of the video. When we look at all the super full moons in Bitcoin's history, we can see that they show up around the bottom, after markup, and at tops, which can be useful in combination with other indicators. For our current cycle, there were a pair of supermoons that showed up before and after the bottom, and our recent supermoons appear to have happened after markup, which gives further confluence that we're entering the parabolic stage of the market. I think the most important detail regarding these moons is when a season of supermoons or micromoons occur, very rarely are there two moons that happen with the same numbered date of different months. This has only happened once in Bitcoin's history, where all of the supermoons of a season are on the same number date, and it happens at the top of the market. The same can be seen with micro new moons. Micro new moons with the same number date in the same season has only happened twice, and both happen to be generational buying opportunities. Opposite moons, opposite markets. In general, both of these moons seem to appear somewhat sporadically throughout the market, but I think the key to look for is when the season of either moon arrives with the same number date in a different month. Sometimes the brightness of a moon can help animals orient themselves when things are dark. It's like how sea turtles hatching at night use moonlight reflected off the ocean to find their way to the sea for the first time. So like the turtle, perhaps we can use these moons to determine where we should begin our journeys. Other rare moons include blue moons and black moons. A blue moon is typically a second full moon within a season or a month. Two in the same month is self-explanatory, but a seasonal blue moon happens when a season has 4 moons instead of 3. This definition is the older, more traditional version and is also a rarer occurrence. The saying, once in a blue moon, implies a rare event, and similarly, to lift the veil is a chance to see beyond the ordinary and discover secrets about the universe. Some believe that during the blue moons, the veil between worlds is thinnest. A black moon is sort of the opposite. It's when there is a second new moon in the same month or no full moon in the month at all. It can be seen as a time for new beginnings, deep introspection, and hidden knowledge. On the charts, again, hopefully everyone can see the black lines on the screen, the most significant of the moons seems to be when there are 2 black moons or 2 blue moons that occur in the same season with the same number day. In this case, there were 2 black moons on January 30th and March 30th right after the market topped in 2013. Similarly, there were 2 blue moons that came in on January 31st, 2018 and March 31st of 2018 right after the market topped in 2017. The rest of them seem to come sporadically, but this connection between the double black or double blue moons with the same numbered date seems undeniably important. And this leads to the grand finale of this video, the blue moons of 2037. Yeah, 2037. The next time we will see blue moons like we saw after arguably one of the best rallies in crypto history is in 2037. And again, the dates match, January 31st and March 31st. I think because of the rarity and the confluence we've seen with this setup, that there will be a legendary crypto rally around this time. Adding further confluence, Bitcoin will likely experience a halving in 2036, leading to a market top between 12 and 18 months after the halving as well. So I expect everyone to remember this video and make their way back here to ridicule me if this doesn't come true, but the setup has further confluence given that the current solar cycle 25 will be ending in the early 2030s. There are often large sell-offs at the end of solar cycles, such as C19 or the GFC. So there is confluence for a bear market in the early 2030s before the rare blue moons return in 2037. This will also be about halfway through solar cycle 26, and solar cycle midpoints are also known to have volatility. To give this further confirmation, before the 2017 top with the ultra rare blue moons, the base of the rally was met by tetrad moons. Tetrad moons are made up of a series of 4 total eclipses that have no partial eclipses in between. They are accompanied by 4 blood moons and suggest a powerful cycle of death and rebirth, often signifying omens in the occult and are foretelling of world events. Few people are aware, but the major conflict with Ukraine and Russia actually kicked off around the time of the first blood moon in 2014. Similarly, the next set of tetrad moons are to take place between 2032 and 2033, which is 4 to 5 years before the double blue moons and potential market top. To add further confluence, there are double black moons in July of 2033, similar to how they appeared in 2014. All the conditions seem to mirror the run-up to 2017. Given the power of these patterns, I think the cycle that occurs between 2032 and 2036 will be massive, and this may be where we see the multi-million-dollar Bitcoin prices happen. I do, however, think the world will be in decline, and those prices will be the result of a collapsing financial system, and there will be few places left to turn. Because Pluto has entered Aquarius, those who are able to buy during the bottom will have likely found a way to escape financial ruin and civil war. While many people might wish for million-dollar Bitcoin, there is a superstition called the moon's wish, which cautions people that wishes made during a full moon, and especially eclipses, may be granted in undesirable ways, so be careful what you wish for.